My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by Dave Edmondson. Now, I'm super excited to be speaking with David today. David, welcome.
Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure. So I wanted to let the people know your background because I think it's fascinating. So at the moment, you are living
in Switzerland at the moment.
Fantastic. But you spent a bit of time here in Australia, didn't you?
Yes, 3.5 years, I think it was in the end. Yeah, between Adelaide and Melbourne.
Fantastic. So so for the people who are watching at home, Dave spent a little bit of time at Adelaide United and a little bit of time at Melbourne Victory. In the women's programs there, he was the head coach, and also spent a little bit of time as a TD at Football Federation Victoria. So we're gonna drill down in his time here, but the beautiful thing is Dave's also been a head coach at teams at London, the London Bees. He's also been a coach and lecturer at Henley College. He's a football consultant. Right now, he's got a vast array of experience. Before coming to Australia, he spent time in New Zealand at Claudeland Rovers in their women's program there. He was the head coach. He's done an MSD in sports directorship at Manchester Metropolitan University. So I'm going to ask him about his master's there. And he also has a background in sports medicine, which I think is fundamentally important to what's happening in the modern game. So super excited to be speaking to you today and from your experience, Dave. So I really appreciate you joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Any opportunity to talk about football, to be honest, you never miss it up.
Oh, fantastic. So that's brilliant. So I first want to talk about, I'm keen to speak to people who really go to the effort of bettering themselves in footballing education, because I think it's important, okay? And I want you to tell us why you went down that journey of footballing education, and then what does that mean to you today? So first, if you can tell me, where did it sort of start, and then where did it finish up?
Yeah, oh, look, I think education is vital in life. Anything you want to do, if you want to do it well, you've got to do the work. And for me, that's educating yourself. Where did it start? Well, if you go back to the very start, I guess, is I did my first degree in a thing called Human Movement Studies back in the UK, which is basically sports science, just worded differently. So we did physiology, biomechanics, sports psychology, sports sociology. So that was my first degree. Then I did a teaching degree. So I'm a qualified physical education teacher, which I did for about 15 years in total, alongside some coaching early on. Then my first sort of, I started along the coaching qualifications route way back at university. I did my football FA badges back in the UK, but as a phys ed teacher, I did other sport badges as well. So, I've got basketball qualifications and lacrosse and boxercise and all sorts of different things, really. To at the time, that was just about building a CV for teaching, really. But when you look back, there's so many things from different sports that you can take. I think sometimes football is very arrogant.
Yeah.
In the fact, it thinks, look, we're football. Everyone likes to say, we're the world game, and we are. There are millions of people around the world who play and are involved in football, but there are other sports that we can take things from. At all levels, right from grassroots. I think football's been quite slow at the very young end of adapting the game. And, I grew up in the UK I couldn't play normal football or organised football until I was 8. And that was 11-a-side on full-size pitches
Mm.
with full-size goals. So you had goalkeepers who couldn't kick the ball out of the penalty box.
Yeah.
And that's, yes, I'm showing my age a little bit, but that's where football was at.
That's where I started too.
Yeah, only 30 years ago. And it's only probably in the last 10 or 15 years that it's really got on board with those adaptations and made the junior game an actual junior version of football instead of just being the big game with little people playing it. So I think that's where my education started. It then progressed. I wanted to advance myself as a football coach. After 10, 12 years of teaching, I kind of thought, football coaching was always alongside the teaching at school level and club level. But it was like, no, I want to take this further. I was coming towards the end of my playing days, and I want to take it further. And part of that for me was getting more education. I did more coaching awards. So I was in New Zealand by that point, and I did the equivalent of their A license. Mm-hmm. But I also did a postgrad diploma in sports medicine.
Yes.
Which for me was, I think the best coaches surround themselves with people who know more than they do.
Yes.
And I totally agree with that. But at the same time, I think the best coach, yes, I'll go and get the best sports scientist I can get. I'll get the best analyst I can get. I'll get the best physios I can get.
You can have the conversation now. Now you can have the conversation about the sports science because you understand. So it's not a one-way conversation. It's a two-way conversation.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think if you ever listen to Raymond Verheyen talk, he has a big push on getting. Look, I don't agree with everything that Raymond says, but there are some really good things that he does say. Yes. And one of those is about having conversations with people. And his push is to get, so a fitness trainer should have all the fitness qualifications, but they should also have a football qualification so that they can link it to football, but also talk football, which is great. But I think, well, why can't the coach do the same? There's no reason why a coach should just be, okay, I'm dumb on this side of things. You tell me what happens. So I wanted a rounded understanding of what things were. And obviously I had a bit of a sports science background through my first degree anyway. So I did that qualification. Then I went on and look, by that point I'd got as high as I could coaching wise in New Zealand. So I went to do my UEFA A license, which I did through the Welsh FA. Not the easiest thing to do from New Zealand. Very expensive, all paid for by me. I wasn't at a big pro club that paid for everything. So it was a life decision, I guess.
Yes.
That, look, this is a massive investment in my future. And did that, which definitely benefited me. You learn a hell of a lot on these courses. It's not, I think, again, too many people look at qualifications, whether they're coaching qualifications or the masters or degrees. They look at them, too many look at them as a piece of paper. Yes. I've got this qualification. It now means I get A job or B job or C job.
It doesn't work like that. Yeah.
For me, it's about the learning process.
Yes.
And yes, I needed the piece of paper, but there's so many things I learned, good and bad, through that course and through that qualification that are beyond the certificate. Seeing other people work, seeing people in the, we had international coaches. We had Roberto Martinez was on my course, for example. Yeah. He's now Belgian national team coach. At the time, he'd just got the Everton job or the Swansea job. Yeah. So real elite coaches.
Yes.
And the discussions you have with those over meals, and you're there for 10-day blocks over a few years, and the conversations that you have with them are massive learning experiences in themselves.
Yes.
So things like that were vital, and they definitely improved me as a coach, and they definitely helped me get the Adelaide job, the Melbourne job, the Bristol job. I wouldn't have well, even the Bristol job, I wouldn't have coached in the UEFA Women's Champions League if I hadn't had those qualifications.
Yes.
So they're vital for that. But as I say, the learning experience is a huge. And my latest one is as you mentioned, a master's in sports directorship.
Yes.
And I guess on the surface, that looks like I want to move out of coaching and become the sports director. And look, to some extent, that's a possibility.
Yes.
But I think as well, when you look at the actual course, there's a quarter of it is about your personal leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about how you build relationships with, not just with your employees or in terms of football players, but also above. So working with boards, working with chairmen, which,
and that's
to be honest, I wish I'd done this course before some of the jobs that I've had.
Yeah, so that is super critical. Like it becomes less about the football, right, and the man management. It's really about managing up, right? Anyone who's had a serious role in any organization, you talk about people who have had serious roles in serious clubs. Half the job is actually not what happens on the pitch, right? It's about how do I manage up, because there's expectations on me to do a job, and I am only one man in one job. So I fully feel you. Yeah. So that is a great learning for the rest of us out here, that it's not just about selecting 11 boys or girls on a particular day, right? It's so much more.
Oh, it is. It's huge. You know, you can have all the plans and ideas in the world in terms of what you put on the grass, but unless you get buy-in from above, you can't implement those. You know, and I think another learning is to do your research before you go to places, and to do that thoroughly. You know, my A license made me massively aware of that. That, you know, the Welsh FA, UEFA, it's fantastic. You know, it's a lot of it is about on the grass, but it's also about your media profile, how you talk to the media, that side of things, and a little bit about managing up and understanding your work environment. But even so, you know, I've made mistakes. I've gone to places where I thought it was one thing, and you get there and suddenly, you know, you unveil what's actually there.
Yeah, of course.
And you suddenly understand the people that you work with. You know, I've had a chairman who told me to, in terms of recruitment, he told me to lie to players about the situation that we have at the club, because once they're here and signed, we can do what we want with them.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I'd like to consider myself it's a bit of as an authentic leader.
Yep.
You know, I lead with some honesty.
Yes.
And I couldn't do that. You know, I couldn't lie to players, but, you know, for just out of morality, but also in terms of my future career, that, you know, if I lie to players, they get there, they find out something's completely different. Suddenly that's all around the game that, oh, Dave Edmondson's not, you know, he'll tell you anything to get you to sign. Don't go there. So, you know, there are so many. Coaching is one element of it.
Yeah, but you really know what you're saying, David, is you really need to understand who you are as a person first, right? You need to be principled to know who you are, okay, and have those principles, because you're going to need to live those principles on a daily basis, and you're going to be tested.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to know what you are, and you also need to know what your non-negotiables are. You know, so there's always going to be things that you can
bend.
You can move a little bit on.
Yeah.
You know, all right, I want 2 physios, but if I can only have one, we can work with that.
Yeah.
But if it's around, you know, tell players we've gone full time, but we're actually not.
Yeah.
You know, that's a non-negotiable. I can't lie to a player to convince them to sign. So you have to understand yourself. What are your non-negotiables? What can't you bend on? And unless you know that, you know, you can't enter any sort of discussion or dialogue about what you want.
I couldn't agree with you more. I'm only commencing my certs, but even the limited experience that I've had, It's not about just learning the framework, it's the chit chat. So, I mean, I message people who have been on my course, and we're mates now, right? So we message each other, we talk about football. It's that network building. You can't get that at home just watching YouTube clips, right? So you need to be on the course with the other people, getting the true immersion of that experience. So thank you very much for sharing. And maybe if you can just sort of double click on the masters, because I'm particularly, was it coursework? Was it coursework thesis? What was the crux of the master's degree there?
Well, it's a bit of both, to be honest. I'm still involved in it, and I'm still got I'm about to start my thesis at the moment, really.
Okay.
But it's a bit of both.
Okay.
It's assignment work, so it's very it's obviously self-led, because you decide what where your topics are going. So obviously your thesis you decide yourself, but even some of the other topics, so there's things about your personal leadership. So there's all sorts of assessments on that, and how you consider yourself as a leader, and where you want to go as a leader. So that's like a quarter of the course around
leadership.
Around you and your leadership. And then there was, there's more business side of things as well. But even within that, you pick a business that you're looking into, and you relate that to the leadership. How is that led? How does that influence the way you go? So, for example, I took there's a club in the UK called Forest Green Rovers. They're a professional club, but they're owned and led by a environmentalist. The guy basically, he does wind power in the UK, so he's got turbine fields all over the place, and it's a really interesting concept around the club that they are. So it's a vegan club, so there's no food other than vegan food served on a match day. Players are not forced to be vegan, but if the chairman pays for any of the food, so at the ground, players only eat vegan. If the chairman has paid for the club to travel, so you're playing on a Saturday, but you're playing opposite end of the country, they get put up in a hotel. All of those meals will be vegan. They have things like bamboo shin pads. So everything, there's no plastic on the ground.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
So from a business perspective, that was a really interesting look. And I looked at it from the perspective of how does that affect performance?
Okay.
So obviously still you're a football club and you need performance. And it's quite a nice story that they were promoted from non-league football. They've gone up to League Two. They're now looking to progress further. So it's a really interesting business model, how you could do that and still be successful on the pitch.
Wow.
So that was a business side of it. There's another side that's around innovation and change.
Okay.
So that's really interesting. And that's, again, the assessment for that is I need to pick an aspect that needs some innovation and change within my role, or potentially within a role that I want to get. So acting as a consultant almost. Okay. So it's very much you build the course as you want it to be.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then there's a final aspect of governance. So again, that is around board makeup and how you work with boards and that side of things. So it's a really
practical. I would, if I could sum it up in one word, it seems like a really practical course. And the next club, that would gain your services from, you could apply that real practical experience of what the real world examples that might benefit that club. Okay, whatever role you get in there. So I want to shoot down to the women's league in Australia's. It's starting to kick off. It's the girls are doing some really good things, and you saw it firsthand, right? Only a few years ago, so you were really part of that push. Tell me what it was like when you first came across from New Zealand and you came to Australia, and what was the experience like, you know, being a head coach in one of the W League clubs here?
Yeah, I guess I'll split that off into a couple of sections, I guess. First is in terms of coaching women.
Yep.
I'd always been a male coach
Okay.
in terms of men's football. And the thing that probably changed me is I was in New Zealand in 2008. New Zealand were awarded the Under-17 Women's Football World Cup.
Yep.
So around 2006, New Zealand Football advertised for an Under-17 women's head coach. And I applied. I got down to the last 2 or 3. And Ricky Herbert actually was technical director at New Zealand Football at the time. Yep. And he rang me and he said, look, really interested in your application. Love the coaching that you've done in men's football so far. Unfortunately, you've not been successful this time. There was another candidate who's got similar levels of coaching, but he's also got women's football on his CV, which at the time, it annoyed me because I kind of thought, this is football. You know, it's not men's football or women's football, it's football. I can coach football. But rather than just sulk about it, I thought, well, okay, I'll get some women's football experience. So alongside my men's football, I started coaching, you mentioned them earlier, Claudelands Rovers. It was a women's team local to me in the top New Zealand division. And I took a team there that were basically, they'd finished next to bottom in the league that year. And it was a really young side, so even, you know, women's football, but they were 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, the young girls.
They were girls, yeah. And I worked with them, and I'll be totally honest, it's interesting. I've got some great relationships with those players and stayed in touch since that. I went in and my first sort of presentation to the players was around, I'm a football coach. I'm not a men's or women's football coach. I'm here to coach football. I've got the same expectations, blah, blah, blah. Did the whole presentation.
As you do.
As you do. And I went in and coached my first session, and I coached another session and coached another session. And it was only a couple of years later, after we'd won the national knockout cup competition, we'd finished second in the league and I think I had 7 or 8 players who made national teams from that club. So we had great success. But it was only after that one of the players said to me, Dave, we've loved having you. This was actually when I was leaving to come to Australia. He said, we've loved having you as a coach, but I'm going to be totally honest, that after that first session that you delivered, that first presentation, we all got together and said, we'll give him a week and see what he's like. Wow. Because if he's going to come in and coach us like he coaches the men, we're not having that. And obviously I knew none of this at the time. And I said, well, how come you stuck with me? And she said, well, you changed the way you coached. And it wasn't something that I'd seen myself and purposely done. But what the girls were talking about was, I coached a lot of the boys of similar age to her in my school job. And I was quite vocal, quite demanding. And that's how I'd gone in the very first session. I'd worked with the girls as well. Subconsciously, I must have seen that wasn't working. I wasn't getting the results. So I changed the way that I coached. I didn't demand less or ask more of them. I just did it in a different way. Yep. Which they then said, look, we saw the change. We realized
they appreciated it better. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So that, I think that's, in a nutshell, for me, that's women's football.
Okay.
It's not a different game. It might be a little bit slower, slightly less physical, but you say less physical in terms of the demands on the body. It's the same. You know, you look at distances they run now. It's not far off what the men do. Yes.
No, they work.
They're playing on the same pitch. They got the same ball. It's
they
not
work their tail off.
Miles away.
The women work their tail off, right?
Oh.
So yeah, and at top flight, they'll beat that still play at an old boy side. They'll kick our bums all day, every day, right? So I think it's definitely has improved tremendously, and it will continue to improve. That gap is shrinking, right? So, and
it is, and I think probably the biggest thing around that is if you look at where women's football's come from. Even if you go back 20 years, which in terms of a sports development is nothing. You go back 20 years, and I don't mean this nastily, but if you look at who were in national teams 20 years ago and look at their background in football, their background was often a couple of years, or it was in social football. I see it in the AFLW now in Australia. You've got players who are playing in the top professional league who've had 1 year's experience in the game. They've come from basketball, they've come from netball, they've come from football. And maybe they played as a little kid, socially friendly. But that's where women's football was 20 years ago.
Yes.
So you've got players who've got a skill base based on, and not just a skill base, a tactical awareness based on 2, 3, 4 years of football. Now we've got girls who are playing the game from 4 years of age.
Yes.
And I hesitate to say getting coached, because they shouldn't be getting coached at 4, 5, 6, 7. They should be being facilitated to play the game. But they're going to have that. So by the time they become a national team player, they will have had 10, 12, 15 years of football experience.
Yes.
And the difference that will make is
massive.
Oh, it's huge. Even you look at Sam Kerr now.
Yep.
Amazing player, playing in the UK, playing at Chelsea. Allegedly broke the record in terms of signing fees until Pernilla Harder. But what was her background? She wasn't playing football competitively from 6, 7, 8. She played a little bit of AFL. She played other sports, and she drifted into football.
Yep.
In another 10 years' time, you will not find anyone who's done that.
Yeah.
All of the female players will have been playing football from first kicks through to club football, school football, and they will have the same background that the men's footballers have now. And that will be the biggest difference that will happen in women's football, I think.
Yeah, fantastic. So couldn't agree more. So I wanted to double click. So now, because you've avoided half of my question, so you've come across to Australia, and now you're the head coach, right, in Australia. You've moved across from New Zealand, okay, and now you're in charge of a W League side. Congratulations, right? So what now?
Sorry, that's the other half of the question. Yeah. And it kind of sprung from my New Zealand under 17 stuff that we came over and played prior to going to the World Cup. We played against Alan Stasic's New South Wales team and his Sydney FC team.
Yep.
And we did really well. We played three games against them. Had some good performances. Made some contacts with Alan. And after the World Cup, he kept in touch and sort of saw that we'd done quite well at the World Cup. We were beaten 3 times, but it was by Japan and Spain, who finished 1st and 3rd in the World Cup that year. And then we lost a ridiculous game against Venezuela that we should have won. But he appreciated what I'd done as a coach, and a job came up at Adelaide United and Football Federation South Australia. Because I guess I should clear up a little bit. Back then, the W League, the majority of teams were run by the local federation.
Yes.
So although it was Adelaide United, it was Football Federation South Australia.
It was their fate.
So much so, and this is again giving you an idea of knowing what club you're going into and what the situation is.
Yes.
Now, I'd done my research and I knew that Adelaide hadn't won for 3 seasons or something ridiculous. They hadn't won a single game for I think it was, when I read it in the paper, it was like they're Australia's worst ever sports team, not won a game in 3 years, which is harsh because when you look at the W League, it's 12 games in a 2-3 month window. So yes, it was right over 3 years, but not quite as bad as that paints the picture. But I'll give you an example of what it was like there. That Adelaide United changed their shirt sponsor. Oh, not shirt sponsor, shirt manufacturer. So the CEO of Football Federation South Australia went to, I think Kappa it was at the time, they changed to Kappa. And he went to Kappa and said, oh, look, we're Adelaide United Women, Football Federation South Australia. We want 25 kits for our new season. And Kappa came back and said, okay, here's the cost. And he's like, no, sorry, I don't think you understand. We're affiliated to Adelaide United. We're part of, and they turned around and said, oh no, sorry, that's not in the agreement that we've signed with Adelaide United Football Club. So that season, we actually played in Adidas strips because they were cheaper. We could get them cheaper from Adidas than we could from, so in terms of a cost-saving thing, we played in a different strip to our parent club.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the situation
that sums up your resourcing issue, right? Yeah. So just without delving too deep into what happened. So, and then obviously that you were there for a season, and then you moved across to Melbourne, right? So you came.
Yeah, I did 2 seasons at Adelaide.
Okay.
So I did 2 seasons there. Made some big improvements. The one thing I will say, you asked about what it was like coming to work in the W League. The one thing I'll say, the players, amazing in terms of, they were full-time workers at the time. And I know things have changed since in terms of minimum salaries and that type of thing. But realistically, when you look at it, they're still semi-professional at best because the season lasts for 3 months.
Yeah.
Now you can't pay someone minimum wage for 3 months, and then what happens for the other 9?
Yeah, expect them. Yeah,
so the reality is,
run a family household or whatever. How do you pay the bills, right? On 3 months' wages, right?
It's different for the top players. If you're a Matilda, you get your salary from Football Federation South Australia as a Matilda. And then obviously a lot of them, up until very recently, up until this season really, they go and play another season. So you play in America or you play in one of the Scandinavian countries, and then you come back. So you can make a 12-month football season and you've got your money from the Matildas as well. But, you're talking Matildas, 20 or so players who are on that central contract. And at Adelaide, I didn't have a single Matilda. So we're asking 4 or 5 nights a week training on top of, I'll use Donna Cocaine as an example. She's a nurse. So you've got someone who's doing, we're not talking, and I'm not trying to belittle this, but we're not talking someone who's doing a couple of shifts in a cafe and then coming to training. That's, the cafe tops up their money. This is someone who's got a career. Yeah.
She's saving lives, standing on the feet all day. Yeah.
So we had nurses, we had teachers, we had police women. And for them to come up from a full-time job and do 5 nights a week plus game at the weekend, which may be a travel to Perth, the commitment, the desire, the buy-in that I got from those players, you couldn't fault it. And my admiration for them is enormous. And fortunately, we were able to repay that. We got a couple of wins, and we kind of turned the tide a little bit for Football Federation South Australia. And you look now at the players that who've come through there. Alex Chidiac, who's playing in Spain. There's some great players who've come through that system, and there's girls who've gone to US colleges, playing for Adelaide United now. Fantastic. And as you say, then I went to Melbourne. And I guess I should also link in alongside both of these roles were, so we talk about the W League being a short season for the players. It is obviously for a coach as well. So, I couldn't move from New Zealand on a teacher's salary with some coaching to top up my salary.
Yep.
I couldn't move to Australia for a 3-month season.
Yep.
So alongside the role was working for Football Federation South Australia as head of women's football.
Yep.
And same when I went to Melbourne. And obviously there you're tasked with developing the game. So that includes grassroots, that includes the club competition, that includes coach education for the women's side of the game. And it includes the elite player pathway, so your NTCs and that type of thing. So that's the role, that was the bigger role.
Yes.
With obviously then the W League alongside that. And when I was at Melbourne, it was a similar situation to Football Federation South Australia. FFV ran the W League side.
Yep.
It started to change as I was leaving.
Yes.
We got more and more involved in it, and obviously since then they've taken it over completely, which I think is great. You know, that's where it should be, because FFV and FFSA, that's not strictly their role.
Yeah, it's not their core business, right? Being a federation is hard enough as it is, right? Then running a football side it's a different beast, right? So it's complex, right? Running a football side's complex, and running federation is, you know, unless you're in the role, do you know how difficult it is to deal with on the federation side? And so this is what I wanted to double click on that, right? So what was your view? I mean, because you've travelled around the world a bit. You've been in the UK. You went to New Zealand. Now you've come across to Australia. Talk to me about the similarities and the differences of what you saw.
I guess, again, there's probably a couple of areas where you need to look at that in terms of players. So for starters, what are the differences with the players? I think the biggest, New Zealand and Australia are very similar in terms of, there are other sports that are the major sports in those countries. The UK, football is the biggest sport. You know, there's not a question about it. And I guess where that has a big effect is knowing the game.
Yeah.
So boys or girls from a really young age in the UK, they grow up watching the game. Whether that's watching the professional game on TV, or whether that's watching their mum or dad play down the park, they grow up watching the game, but also discussing the game.
Yeah.
You know, talking about who's a good player, why they're a good player, who's better than who should be picked, what formation the team was playing on what day. You know, so those discussions go on. And I think that's latent learning that a lot of Australian and New Zealand families don't provide. I think Australia, I think both countries, there are obviously a lot of expat people. There are a lot of British people, or in terms of probably more in Australia than New Zealand, you get your Italians and your Greeks, so there is an element of that. Mm-hmm. But I think in the UK, it's huge. And just the opportunity to watch the game all the time as well. So I think that's a big difference in terms of a positive for the UK and Europe, I guess. There's a real negative in terms of, for women especially, and this is more compared to New Zealand, I guess, is the attitude towards women's sport. I'm not suggesting you do it, but if you look at social media so if you go to Manchester United women's Twitter account or Chelsea women's Twitter account, and they can make a post about a new signing, and you read the posts underneath, and the number of unbelievable comments on there around you should be back in the kitchen, why are they even playing, get the sandwiches made, right down to announce the signing for the men's club. Okay. And so you can have 1,000 tweets replies underneath, and I would say something like 700 of those would be negative comments from men.
Yes.
Which I never experienced in New Zealand or Australia.
Okay. So you're saying, to sum up what you're saying is, it's a bigger opportunity for the women. However, the respect level in the southern region, Australia, New Zealand, you're saying we value our women's sides more than what happens in the UK. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I would say that definitely. You look at the way the Matildas have been really well supported, but also you look at the cricket, women's cricket, the crowds that they get at the women's Big Bash and those types of things. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, and it's seen as there's too many people in the UK who they want to jump on the fact that they hear that the Matildas lost to an under-15 boys team, or they hear that the US women lost to an under-15 boys team. And they want to compare the two. They say, what level would these women play at in the men's game? And I say, well, that's not what we're talking about. They're two different sports. It's women's football and men's football in terms of competition. It's the same in tennis, and you do occasionally hear it. Someone will say, well, Serena Williams couldn't be an amateur guy. And she's actually gone on and shown that she can a few times, which doesn't help my argument, but it's different sport. We watch Serena play to see how good she is against other women. I don't want to watch her against a man.
Yeah, and this is actually, so I think it's important, right? We need to put an exclamation mark at the end of this statement. And I'll use the analogy in boxing, right? You don't expect a featherweight to fight a heavyweight and then say, hey, they're both boxers, right? You'd be ludicrous. And so, anybody who wants to make those types of comparisons, right? I think a women's side can get a lot out of playing a men's side because of the physicality. And I've seen that happen numerous times, but the result is not what it's important, okay? It's about what learnings you can get out of by playing somebody else, okay, and not necessarily playing a men's side, but playing an under-15 boys side. What can you learn if you're the coach of the women's side? Okay, am I going to get, because I'm playing opposition with a little bit more pace, can I get that pace out of that 15 boys or 16 boys side? And can I replicate that football problem, right? So these are the things that people don't understand when they read the paper, right? It's a little bit naive. I think it's almost not even worth entertaining, because you always get critics that really don't really understand the game, but they want to be very vocal about it, right? So you just let them say what they want to say, and water off a duck's back. So tell me, for you, what's if you could sum up with all your travels, you've gone, halfway around the world, right? Experiencing from where you grew up in the UK all the way down to where we live on the other side of the world, now back into Europe. What's been the central theme in your travel, in your footballing journey? If you could sum it up in a sort of a philosophy, what is it you're going to take into the next role?
That's a great question. I don't think there's any real secret. I think any role that you're in, whether it's in a different country or whether it's in the same country or whatever it is, there are always things that you can take. Mm-hmm. Even when I was in New Zealand, I coached my school first 11. we went to 2 national finals, and we trained 4 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd do 6:30 morning sessions, and we'd do after school sessions. So I coached my first 11 school team. I coached in the winter. I coached a men's Northern League top team who trained 2 nights a week. I coached a women's top division side who trained 3 nights a week. And then in the summer, I coached a National League team. So in New Zealand, they have a summer league as well, which is basically the National League. So I had Marco Rojas as an example.
Yep.
I signed him to play for Waikato. So that was my coaching work alongside being a teacher. So I had four roles there. And I took bits from each of those roles, just that even within that time, there's things that I would do with the school team that you would see, well, okay, that works there. I'll give that a try with the women's team, or I'll give it a try with the men's team or the National League team. And there'd be times when you'd be like, well, yeah, that works as well here, but actually, because the players are a bit different, I can adapt it and do something slightly different.
Yeah.
So that was within the same block of time.
Yeah.
In the same country. So I think the secret is you have to be looking at everything you're doing and reviewing it every single session.
Wow.
Whether that's video, whether that's, because that's the latest buzz thing, that people get video.
Yep.
And you watch yourself. Great.
Yep.
But you're watching yourself with the same eyes that you're coaching.
Yep. So
you're already looking for things. You've got an expectation of what was going to happen in that session because you planned it, and you had, as part of your planning, you had, well, I want this, I want to achieve this.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, you're looking for that. So you'll often find things that maybe aren't there. You're making them be there. So one of the big things for me, review, is I ask for feedback from players. So yes, I'll video, and yes, I'll watch myself, but I'll ask for feedback from players. And it's a really difficult thing because there's issues around being a leader and asking for feedback. It's particularly if you look at it as a coach and a player. Is a player who wants to be in your starting 11 on the weekend going to tell you your session was rubbish? You told us you wanted to achieve this, but Dave, it was nothing like that. We didn't achieve that. So you have to create a real honest and transparent culture within your group, and it has to be consistent. You can't do it once every 6 weeks and expect the feedback to be honest and useful. So it has to be embedded in the way you work. So that for me is key. Reviewing things personally, yes, use video, but get feedback from the people involved, and not just players. Your assistant coaches, your physios, anybody who's involved in your team. Because physios are a great source of information. Because you've got a player on a physio's table, and they talk and they chat and they say things that they open up, and it might be different to what you would get. So I've had great physios I've worked with in the past who, but I made it really clear, don't divulge anything that, you've still got patient confidentiality and everything. I don't want to know that side of things. But look, if there's something that they're saying around how I'm doing things, what can improve me, then I want to know. And I've had physios who've come and said that. They've said, look, there's an appearance that you're favouring this player over this player. I said, wow, really? I would never have picked that up. I've watched the video back. I didn't see that. I've asked for feedback from players and I didn't get that coming back to me, but I've got it from somebody else. And they're the things that are gold. Getting information around the way that you perform, I think is huge. If you bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to flick these blinds behind me so that the sun isn't glaring.
Not a problem.
Hopefully that's a bit better.
It is a lot better. Thank you. So, yeah, look, invaluable information. A coach of any level that regardless of the person and their role in the club, if they've got eyes on the interaction between coach and player, that they can add value, right? And you touched on the mindset of seeing feedback as a gift, okay? Seeing that idea that you can ask for feedback and that whatever comes out, can you utilize that? Is there elements of truth or nuggets within that's a gift to improve yourself and then the team that you're coaching? I think that's brilliant. I mean, and that can be used in all aspects of life, not just football, right? This is now a life lesson that in regardless of what job you're doing. So
I think as well that's a skill in itself, giving and receiving feedback. I remember with the New Zealand under-17s, I got Maria Tutaia to come in. New Zealand legend in netball. And it was awesome because at the time, we're going back 2010, she's still young.
Yes.
She'd gone to the same school as two or three of the players that I had in my under-17 squad. So she was really relevant, and obviously an absolute elite performer. And one of the things she talked about was feedback. And she talked about it within the Silver Ferns, so within the New Zealand netball team. And she said, we really changed the way that we gave and received feedback, because what was happening was everyone wanted to be friends and be nice to each other. So, and she said she did it herself, and she found this skill really hard, that she would receive a pass. So she's the shooter, she's in the circle. She would receive a pass that was a little bit slow and it would get intercepted and the other team would take the ball away and they lose a chance to score. And she would say she found herself, and she didn't realize at the time, but it was shown by the coaches, that after that bad pass, her response would be a little clap and unlucky next time to her teammate. And her teammate at the time was Laura Langman, again, an absolute legend of the game. And Laura, actually, when they had this big group discussion, she said she hated that. She didn't want that. She wanted Maria to turn around and give her a telling off.
Give me the bloody ball. Yeah, give me the ball.
Quicker.
Yeah.
Stop waiting, fire it in. But they, as a group, and these are all elite performers, remember? These are,
of course.
These are world champions.
World champions.
Commonwealth medal winners, they're everything.
Yes.
But even within that group, they weren't being honest with each other in terms of feedback, because they feared upsetting somebody. So the way they did it, they separated off into smaller groups, so you weren't in a big group with someone standing up and saying, you're not doing your job properly. It was, we'll get 2 or 3. And they went through a process, it took time, that start with a positive and then come in with something that you want to improve.
Yeah.
And she said by the end of it, it became, from the outside, it could look brutal because you were hammering each other. But it came from a position where they all knew, look, this is about the actions that I'm doing on a netball court, not the type of person I am, not whether you like me or dislike me.
Yes, it's business.
As a team, what can we do to improve?
Yeah, it's business, it's not personal. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's, again, it's something that it can be taken for granted. And this is where coaching gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Everyone thinks it's about which 11 do I pick, and drives me mad. What formation are they on the pitch? Because that's a complete fallacy of, they play 4-4-2, or in Australia, it's the national curriculum's rubbish because it's all 4-3-3. No, it's not. And you're just talking nonsense. So stop straight away. It's about how that is animated and how that comes to life. But coaching is so much bigger than even that. It's relationships, it's feedback, it's everything.
Yes. Communicating in the right way, right? You were talking about the nuance of delivering a message because you delivered it one way, and it wasn't quite working, and understanding that you can deliver the same message in a slightly different way to get it the same outcome. This is the difference between the novice and the master, right? It's that understanding the layers of detail that you need to get to. And then part of that comes through experience, right? So you need to live it to understand it and learn it. And part of that you can then pick up from others, right? So you can learn from other people's experiences. And what I hope, as part of this conversation, the people that are watching can really learn that, yes, video analysis is very good. It's a good first step, right? It's a good first step of analyzing. It's better videotaping your game than not videotaping your game. You're going to see a lot more that you didn't see in the moment, right? That's a great first step, and you can gain a lot of learning. But then what's the layer of detail on top of that, and then on top of that, and then on top of that? So it almost becomes a never-ending story, this journey that we're on as learners of the game, because we're all on a learning journey. And then
I think that's key as well. You say you can learn it from experience, and I'll give you an example. As a former Scottish and Manchester United international, Gordon Strachan, and there's a quote from him saying he was Scottish national team manager, coach for a while, and there's a quote going around from him around, if I explain it once and he doesn't understand, I'll explain it again. If he doesn't understand the second time, I'll explain it a third time. If he doesn't understand it a third time, he's never going to get it. It's just useless. It's a waste of my time. And I found that, I'd love to say I was surprised by it, but I wasn't surprised, because you asked again about the differences between UK and Australia. The UK it's no surprise to me that there's so many foreign managers in the UK, because I shouldn't stereotype, because there are some amazing English coaches around as well, often not given opportunities because of they've not got the playing background, or they've not got that. But this coach, Gordon Strachan, he didn't see that. I'll tell you once, I'll tell you a second time, I'll tell you a third time. And then the blame is on the player. Well, I didn't get it. So they're thick. They can't get it. Flip that round. If you're selling the same message the same way, what's the point? If he doesn't understand it the first time, tell him it in a different way the second time. And if he still hasn't got it, you've got to find another way to tell him. Yes. And if it's not telling, maybe it's not telling him, maybe it's showing him.
Yeah.
So there are, and you talk about getting the message over. There's 11 different individuals in your team, and each one of them needs to be treated as an individual. Yes. And sometimes, you've got a half time where you might have, by the time they're off the pitch, and you might have 10 minutes. So I'm not saying you go to each person individually and give them the message, but you might have someone in your team who really doesn't pick things up very well from spoken word. So you might need an assistant coach who just draws it on a little white pad and goes and sits next to them while you're talking.
Yes. So
you've got to individualize things. You've got to make them specific to the people. And that's a big, big task.
Yes. I run a small team in my business here, and I noticed that the members within our team, we did a personality testing, right? And I thought it was very, very accurate, and just the way some people want to process information, right? Mm-hmm. Some people like abstract ideas, other people don't like abstract ideas, right? That's not. So if I was to talk about, you explain somebody's simplistic way, right? And they say, yeah, I get it. Don't worry about, like, they want to move on because they want the detail, or they want a complex scenario. Now, if you give the complex scenario to the person who wants to understand the idea in a simple way, right, you're just going to talk over their head. So really truly understanding the personality types of your people in a scenario enables you to then change the frame of reference of the communication. So I think this is this is amazing. It's no different between any workplace where we're talking football, or or if you're in, you were saying the nurses in a hospital system, right? The people are different, and we need to have nuanced conversations. So this has been a fantastic conversation. What advice do you have for us new coaches, right? So a lot of the people here are on our footballing journey. You've obviously many years ahead of where we are. What advice do you have for us that we can take away so we can maybe shortcut some of the learnings that you've had? If you could please share.
It's difficult because there's so many, as we've already kind of hinted, that there's so many elements to being a good coach. But I'll go with two. The first is around what we kind of just discussed in terms of relationships.
Yes.
So create relationships with your players,
Yes.
professional relationships, but more than that, even if it's just a hello when they come in, just a handshake. That's something that was totally new to me coming to Australia. At the end of every session, so the end of my first session with the Adelaide women, suddenly there's a line of players coming up to shake my hand, and Maya was like, "Okay, what's this?" Because that was something that I'd never experienced before. In the UK, the session would finish and the first couple would be picking their bags up and running off because their mum was tapping a watch to say get in the car or whatever. But it just wasn't a done thing. And for me, at first I thought this is all a bit weird, but then I thought, no, actually this is great because it's an opportunity just to have a little, hey, well done tonight, or that was good, or don't worry about that mistake you made earlier, heads up. And it's just and it's same on the way in, that as they turn up, it was a handshake. And that's your opportunity to say, how was work today? Or, if you know that they've got a sick relative or something, how are they? Just to show that you're interested in them as a person, not just a commodity that you can put on the pitch.
Wow.
So that would be the first one.
Powerful.
Take care over the people. And that goes beyond your players as well. If you've got assistant coaches and, at Bristol, I was doing 80-hour weeks. And you can have an expectation that your assistant coaches are doing the same. And you need to understand that you're asking a hell of a lot of some of these people, and just, don't just, your staff, we worry about the players, you worry about your staff as well. So that was the first one. The second one, from a more coaching perspective, and this is gonna sound a bit strange, I guess. The other one would be stay off the internet. Stop going onto the internet to find sessions. Stop Googling, how do I coach pressing from the front with a front three? Because anybody can do that. And the majority of sessions that you see, it's, and I'm as guilty of this previously. And in fact, to be honest, it was the Australian coaching courses that probably brought this home more than anything. Because, again, I say I was guilty of, I'd get the book of How to Barcelona Play. And, there's books out there, all Barcelona's sessions from a season. And you can go and get all Jurgen Klopp sessions from the season with Dortmund. And I've done that. I put sessions on I've got an Ajax book somewhere that, I love Ajax and the way that as a football club, how they developed and what they do, produce their own players, sell them on to survive. I love that. And I've taken sessions from there, and they've worked and they've been fine. Mm-hmm. But have they improved me as a coach? Probably not. So my advice, and for a beginning coach, this might not be, it's a bit harsh saying stay off the internet.
Yeah.
But it might be once a week, guarantee that you have done a session that you've designed yourself.
Yeah.
So, start from, and this is great the way FFA education does this. You start with the game. So you've got your, whether it's on TV with a video or whether it's, you've got your magnets and you've got them lined up, how they're lined up in a situation, put them all on there. So you've got 22, if that's how many, if you, in the 11v11 game, you've got 22 magnets or 22 players on a video, and narrow it down to what you need. So where's your problem? My problem is my right winger can't get in behind his fullback. Well, okay, who are we interested in? Well, the right winger, obviously. Who influences him? So it's about dropping the stone on your right winger, and the ripples. How big are the ripples? So the big ripples around, well, my right back's included in that. My centre midfield's included in that. My centre forward's included in that. So they're key players involved in this. The ripple doesn't really get to my left back or my goalkeeper, so I can be less interested in them. Yeah. And this goes, if you're in a professional environment and you've got 22 players, you still need to consider them.
Yes.
But that might just be a little, hey, keeper, look where we are on the pitch. Have you remembered to just keep up with play? And that's like a throwaway 5-second influence. Whereas your right back and your centre midfield, you're drilling down in where their positions are, what you want from them. But if you're a younger coach with a younger team, and you might only have 10 people at training on a Wednesday night, well, you can still get this session because we've said, who are the key players? My right winger, my centre midfield, my right back, my centre forward. There's 4. Who's key against that? Well, obviously the left back, the centre back, their midfield player.
Yeah.
So there's 7 players. I can actually make a session that gets what I want when we go to 11v11, but I've designed it, I've planned it, it's specific to me, it's specific to my players, it's specific to the situation that we face on a weekend. Because, the problems that you get as an under-12 coach aren't the same that Dortmund faced under Jurgen Klopp. He's not playing against the same team, the same players. So that session that you've taken from a book, it may well look pretty when you put it on the grass, and the kids might go home saying, "Oh, we did a Dortmund session tonight. It was brilliant." But come Saturday or Sunday, they're facing totally different things. And I even found this going back from Australia to the UK. When I first went with Melbourne Victory, we were a very high pressing team, and we worked hard to press to get the ball back as high as possible and counter-attack quickly. And I took that with me initially at Bristol. One of the big differences that I found between the British players and the Aussie players was the length of their pass. So the English players were pinging balls, female players were pinging balls 50, 60 metres. Whereas I would have Matildas, I had Steph Catley at Melbourne Victory and Lisa Devanna and those types of players, great players who played lovely football, but weren't pinging it 50, 60 metres. So when I took the press from Melbourne Victory to Bristol, what I was finding was, yes, the keeper would play out to the centre-back, but the centre-back would immediately have one touch and ping it 60 metres diagonal to the opposite winger. Yeah. And our press...
There goes your press. There goes your press. Your press is done.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
So, even just within different environments within the women's game, there was things that I had to adapt.
Yes.
And I had to make specific. So even if it's different within those two environments, it's definitely different from your under 12 NPL club in Melbourne to Dortmund in the Bundesliga. So it's probably a long way to explain that, but
but it means a lot. I think, and that's the point. I think so know yourself. I think this is what I'm going to take from this conversation. Try and know yourself. try and get to know your players, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And invest the time to design sessions that relate exactly to your environment and your team. I mean, I think the massive learnings that any coach at any level can take, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, sir. I've learned a lot from our minutes together, and I sincerely hope that other people watching this also take away the golden nuggets that we've spoken.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Yeah, it's way too easy to talk about football, to be honest. It's and I do get overly passionate about it, and I do.
Yes.
There are things I see happening that in the game that I wish weren't, and it's, you know, I think people talk about Australia and the issues there at the moment, and if there's one thing I wish we could change around football in the whole world, it's to stop all the bickering and arguing and you know, everyone trying to fight their own corner. The corner is football.
Yes.
You know, it's hard enough in Australia. It's hard enough. You've got AFL, you've got cricket, you've got everything else.
Yeah.
Let's not fight with each other. You know, I see Rob Sherman, who's awesome, by the way, technical director, resigned because he just felt there's too many factions, not able to implement what would improve the game. And I wish people would just come together in the football world and support each other. Yeah.
So I think, look, I think that's really important. You know, we're all here. I mean, like, especially coaches, you know, you're not, very few of us, we do it for the love, right? So, you know, the vast majority of coaches, it's not like, you know, super money. I don't know whether people actually realize, but, you know, I know top flight coaches, okay, that are, you know, the guy who's driving the truck is making more money than him. And I don't think people realize that. And because they see it, they see the top flight coaches on TV, they see the Twitter announcement, they see the LinkedIn posts. It looks fantastic because they get interviewed by, you know, the media outlet. But what they don't realize is the amount of hours that they dedicate to the game, and the vast majority, anyone who's coached, right, at whatever level, right, you know, very few coaches make the absolute money like, you know, the chosen one, right? So they think it funnels all the way through, right? We do it because we love the game, right? We do it because we want to give something back. And the last thing we need to do is start arguing, you know, my bike's better than your bike, or my ideas, I know more about the game than you know more about the game. That's all just silly talk, right? So I couldn't agree more. So it's been, like I said, an absolute pleasure speaking with you, sir. I hopefully maybe one day you can come back to Australia. And we can learn back from you what you've learned by leaving us and then going back to Europe and then maybe coming back. So maybe if you come this neck of the woods, we can have a coffee or a beer, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, very much so. I do miss Australian coffee, to be honest. But no, yeah, those things are definitely in the pipeline, hopefully, and we'll see where they take us.
Fantastic. Well, you have a great rest of the day, and we'll speak next we speak.
Great. Cheers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.